Rory.
Yes, sir.
Hey, how are you, man?
I'm doing all right. I hope you are.
Yeah, thanks. I'm doing really well. I know we have this call with Peter Barringer coming up, and I just wanted to give you kudos, man. This Bank of England admits 22% of Austria's gold is gone article you posted on February 25th, based on Peter's information, is really astounding. So it's ironic that we had this call set up with him, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, because we set this up about, 2 months ago, 3 months ago?
Yeah, and I've never spoken with Peter before. I know he doesn't get a lot of exposure here in the States. I think KWN has interviewed him once. How did you come to know Peter?
Well, it was through the King World News interview, and I just thought, well, I'm going to reach out to this guy and see what's on his mind, see what's going on, because I learned that in that interview that he is the architect of the gold repatriation movement in Germany, and it is I believe it's his idea. I know that he's done a lot of legwork on it, if not all of the legwork, and so that was like, I need to talk to this guy. And so I reached out to him, and he was kind enough to reciprocate, and we've had a great relationship ever since.
Well, I'm really anxious to talk with him. I know he's expecting us to call now. Should we do that? Should we dial him up?
Dial him up.
All right, let me try to do that here. I hope he picks up.
Hello there.
Peter. Hi
Sean?
there. Yes, Sean and Rory on the line.
Hello, and good morning to you.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Doing fine. Yourself?
Oh, doing very well, and I have Rory on the line. He was kind enough to set up this call a couple of months ago, and I want to welcome everybody to this special broadcast with Peter Barringer. Peter's site is, Peter, can you pronounce your site for folks? I think it's goldsightenblog.com. Is that correct?
That's just correct.
Peter has a book that he's working on that will be coming out here in April called Get Our Gold Home. I believe it's going to be published in German only. I know your plans, Peter, are for that to be translated into English. Rory and I were talking before we had you come on here about this recent article Rory posted, which got 3,000 reads on his site, The Daily Coin. And it was breaking information that he titled, Bank of England admits 22% of Austria's gold is gone. Peter, tell us a little bit about your site and a little bit about your mission, which is to repatriate German gold.
Right. The book, I can tell, I just finished today. It took quite a few months, a lot of work, I can tell you. But it was not our intention to write a book on this one. Actually, I founded Repatriate the Gold, the German initiative, in 2011. And obviously, it was not the plan to write a book about that. But after 5 years, 4.5 years now, so much happened. And not only in Germany, this campaign went far beyond Germany in the meantime. Well, there's really more than enough, and we have more than 400 pages. I will try to have it translated into English too, maybe a little smaller then, because a few of the topics are obviously German-centered. The name is the project. We want to have the German gold audited, especially since almost everything is abroad and has been abroad. At least that's what we thought when we started out in 2011. In the meantime, Bundesbank claims, but we have not yet any proof for that a third of our gold, that is 1,100 tons, is already in Germany. The bulk of it is still in New York, and something is in London too, and a little bit in Paris as well. Everything is completely obscure. We have still no real clue about the detailed status, especially not whether and how much is leased out, how much is paper gold. Even the Bundesbank, in the meantime, did a lot of claims, and they claim that everything is in order. They have been repeating that 100 times at least, but they're not giving out any truth. But we have succeeded in 2013 by public pressure, and that was the only means we had, that they had to implement a partial repatriation plan. So Germany is in the process of bringing home some of its gold, not quick enough, not fast enough, and not proven enough. But something is happening here, and this in itself is sensational, because this is the first time in 50 years that the problem is a 50-year-old problem, 50. We put a lot of energy into that, and the public pressure grew not only in Germany, and I must say, by help of a lot of American friends like you, we succeeded in putting a lot of pressure on without having that intention, putting a lot of pressure on other countries. And there are more than 60 countries all over the world storing gold, especially in New York and London. And there are so many initiatives going on now, calls for transparency, for an audit, for repatriation, official initiatives, private initiatives, public initiatives. They're very heterogeneous. I know many of them, but not all of them. Some are even parliamentary, some are central bank actions, as in the Netherlands, and some are successful. So we have at least 3 or 4 countries who have already repatriated gold from Anglo-Saxon vaults. And well, the bulk is still not successful, but we have a lot more information than we had 3 or 4 years ago. So this train is running. If that's of interest to you, I could even give you a list of countries, which is in my book, a pretty impressive list, I must say, where something is going on regarding the central bank gold.
Please do. I know there's a growing list of countries that are initiating gold repatriation. This is becoming a very big topic worldwide, and it's about time. So yeah, please give us that list.
And I'm mentioning it because this list is not out in the public so far. This is really the first time I'm getting that out, with the exception of my book. It is in my book. I'm starting that with Ron Paul's initiative in 2009, Audit the Fed. This was the very first one. Obviously, you don't have any US gold to repatriate because it allegedly is everything on US soil. But Ron Paul started in 2009 with the auditing campaign. He was not successful, and I know that his son Rand Paul is now trying to re-implement it in the Congress. Let's see how far he will get.
Right.
This was the first one. Then we had that in 2011, that singular event, I should say, from Venezuela. Hugo Chavez, who is now dead or deceased, successfully repatriated the Venezuelan gold from the Bank of England. But then really our campaign started in 2011. It took quite some time to get started, but this was about the time when other countries also started their campaigns, especially in 2012, 13, and 14. This is not the exact chronological order, but I'm giving you those country names where really something is going on, successful or not. We had Switzerland, we had England, an audit campaign in England. They don't have to repatriate, of course. Then there's Austria. We can go into detail a little more. That started out in 2012 already. We had the Netherlands, already successful repatriation going on there. We have even France, La Grande Nation. La Grande Nation has gold on foreign soil. Imagine that. I mean, Charles de Gaulle, some 50 years ago, repatriated everything from the US, from New York, with submarines, military submarines. and now some French gold is abroad again. Just imagine that. Then we have Belgium in the process of repatriating. Mexico, also a very interesting case, very similar to the German case, even though we had no contact when we started out, the Mexican colleagues. It's just the natural questions to be asked, and the Mexicans are asking their governments and their central banks, Bancito, exactly the same questions as we ask Bundesbank, and they have the same demands. And it's very similar in all those countries. We have Poland, we have Italy, we have Australia. Azerbaijan has already repatriated its gold. We have Ecuador. Then there's Romania in Europe. And, well, there are 2 countries, at least 2 I know of, but there may be more, where the opposite is happening because wars are going on. We had Libya and the Ukraine, where the national gold is just gone. It got expatriated. We're not 100% sure where it went. So this is the list. It's a long one, and it's probably not even complete.
Wow. Well, that's insane. I giggle when you say we don't know where it went. I have my suspicions about Libyan and Ukrainian gold. But just to recap that list, Switzerland, England, I believe you said England, correct?
That's correct. There's an auditing campaign. And of course, the Bank of England has their gold on its own soil, and there's not a lot left anyway. They only got 250 tons because Gordon Brown 15 years ago sold it at $250 per ounce,
right,
at the very worst time in history.
At the very bottom. That's right. Well, so let's recap that list. Switzerland, England, Austria, Netherlands, France, Belgium, Mexico, Poland, Italy, Australia, Ecuador, Romania, And then, of course, the question of Libyan and Ukrainian gold. And I know I missed one. There was another you mentioned.
You missed a small one. Azerbaijan, it's not a lot. They only got 15 tons, but they repatriated it all. Interestingly, from England, but not from the Bank of England, but it was stored at JP Morgan's vaults. Well, we can have the discussion whether it's the same vault or not.
I'm getting goosebumps, you guys, because I think this is such a remarkably important conversation. And again, so much credit to you, Rory, for reaching out to Peter and making this connection. What I'm fascinated by and inspired by is the fact that, Peter, you mentioned that you were inspired by Ron Paul's audit of the Fed. And a lot of times when we're fishing a fishbowl here in this country, we feel like we're so up against the fascism, really, the tyranny of the central bank, that we feel like even an audit, Ron Paul's audit of the Fed, isn't going to amount to a hill of beans. But what it's done in this case is it's inspired you, and it's inspired, I believe, others around the world to ask these very important questions about our own nation's sovereignty, about the value of gold, and about what central banks are doing with gold. I think this is so very important. So, Rory, I'm going to turn it over to you because you are the one who posted this remarkable article from Peter, which was written in German and then translated. It's a little hard to follow. I have some specific questions about some of these things in here, but I guess let's just recap. Bank of England admits 22% of Austria's gold is gone. Rory, why don't you run with that and on some of the things pointed out in this article?
All right. The one thing I want to say, first of all, Peter, is that when you and I spoke before, that list of countries that you just gave is about double what you and I had spoken about a couple months ago, and which is pretty incredible. But when you and I spoke on the phone yesterday, you said that there were some things that didn't translate properly, and if you would, why don't you bring us up to speed with exactly what the Austrian government has found out and where this is headed?
Well, no criticism meant from my side, of course. This was just
No,
a
I
translation.
understand.
So this was just a translation thing. Google translations are not exactly the best, and this was some of my details in my German language article regarding Austrian auditing requests. Were very Austrian specific, and not everything is of importance. I give you the gist, which might be of interest to international listeners. Austria has a so-called auditing office. It's an institutional body. We have the same here in Germany. A lot of countries have that. They are in charge of auditing public affairs, in this case also Austrian central bank affairs. And their language in their very long report is very strong against the Austrian National Bank. They really accuse their colleagues, their banking colleagues from the central bank, of gross negligence regarding their gold. They basically say, or literally say, for many years you had no clue about your foreign holdings of gold. No clue. That's really the wording here. You had no access rights. You had no contractual rights. You didn't even have a clear ownership understanding. Who's the real legal owner of the gold? And obviously they say a lot of your gold has been leased out. You can then argue whether it's gone or not. In your headline, it read as it's gone. And I would agree to some extent, because leased out gold is non-physical any longer. It's not there. It's not for you to dispose or to work with it. So you could say it's gone. I would agree there. But still, legally, it's not gone. It's just leased out. This has been going on with many central banks, between many central banks for many decades. They're leasing out gold all the time without ever disclosing it. And that's what is interesting here. We have official admittance and confirmation from a government body in Austria that and how much gold has been leased out. It's been 22% in 2013. That was the end of the time when the auditing office looked at. They even give us a number of 56% of the gold, which had been leased out in 2009. This only changed in 2011, already due to public pressure. And they claim, Austrian Central Bank now claim, that they have stopped leasing out. They allegedly have everything back again physical at the Bank of England, but they still did not do a proper audit. And that's really interesting that we have everything in writing now officially, even though, of course, I know, or we all know, that this is probably very typical for central banks all over the world.
So if I understand correctly, then what the Bank of England is telling Austria is the gold has been leased. It's not, which to me means that it's not there. I mean,
Right.
if you, and this is part of our conversation yesterday, if you come into my house, or if I take something from my house and I leave it with you, then I expect you to take care of it. And then when I come to retrieve it, or when I come to look at it, even, and you say, "Well, I leased that to someone else," that doesn't really set too well with me.
Yeah.
So, where, how does Austria respond at this point from your perspective? I mean, what's the next step for these guys?
Right. This was not the first report we received yesterday. The discussion has been going on for 2 or 3 years now in Austria. Initially, Austrian central bank was as arrogant as, for example, Deutsche Bundesbank. They did not give out any information. They just plainly said, everything is in order with our gold. We have it all, and do not bother. You public, do not bother, and you auditing office, it's none of your business. But they had to give that up. I had to disclose a little more in 2014. And then for the first time, we learned about the so-called auditing processes, which were just no audits at all. We learned that there was no transparency at all at the Bank of England's walls. There was really no responsibility. And now we know that a lot of the gold was paper gold. And well, with gold, especially national gold, being the ultimate reserve of any currency of a country, you should have possession of it. Ownership is important, but physical possession is as important as ownership. And they don't have that. They cannot prove it. We have no proof whatsoever. So the next step really will be to mount up even more pressure on Austrian central bank. We had already public demands for step downs of the president of the Austrian central bank. That's already out. So the pressure is mounting. I don't think he will step down. But central banks never react directly. We had the same thing in the Netherlands. They had a long discussion for 2 and 3 years. I was instrumental in founding the initial campaign in the Netherlands too. And they would never admit it, but 2 years later, the Dutch central bank repatriated half of their gold from abroad out of a sudden. And they would never have done that without public pressure. So it is possible to do something, but it is really hard work. And all we can do is do it via the public, because there are no judges out there who would ever rule against the central bank.
Well, Peter, I have a question for you. If the Austrian National Bank had all of the gold in physical form that it is supposed to have, how much gold are we talking about?
We're talking about 280 tons here, 280. A lot of it is so-called unallocated gold. So, well, we never know how many owners an individual bar has. It's not physically separated from other countries' gold.
Right. Well, in this report that Rory posted, I'm going to do a rough translation here, trying to read the Google translation from German and try to do this service here. But it said, the composition of the gold holdings of the Austrian National Bank in the years 2009 to 2013 changed greatly. Thus, the proportion fell to non-physical inventory of approximately 56% in 2009 to approximately 22% in 2013. Can you just clarify for us what that means, Peter? How much physical gold is on hand versus non-physical?
The absolute amount is 280 tons. That's what Austrian Central Bank has officially. And in 2009, and we have that official now, 56% of it had been leased out, which means it's physically gone. It's elsewhere. I mean, obviously it's not gone, but somebody else had it. And in 2013, this number went down to 22% leased out gold. Officially, by 2015, they now have ended all leasing agreements. So officially, everything should be back there at the Bank of England in Austria's possession, and no, not possession, but in Austria's physical, property.
I see.
What I wanted to ask Peter is about. I know that with the situation in Greece right now, in Germany is the biggest country that is funding or you guys have the most money at stake in the situation in Greece. And I
Yes.
wanted to ask about the people in Germany that you're in contact with and what the people on the street are saying about this situation, and how, is there a lot of animosity? Is there
Mhm.
how do the Germans feel about what's going on in Greece?
I have to go back a little bit here. The euro was founded in 1999. Greece joined in 2001. Today we know that there was already a lot of fraud involved. It was a political decision. They didn't fulfill the criteria to join the euro, but nevertheless they were brought in. Up in the decades before 2001, Greece was one of those countries who kept devaluating their currency every year for 2 or 3 or 5%. That way, they remained competitive, and that was no longer possible after 2001. So we are 15 years later now. 14 years later. They should have devaluated a lot, at least I would say 3 or 4% times 14 years. So the drachma would be the purchasing power of the drachma, would it still be there? The former Greek currency, would probably be less than half what it is now. That's the result of the euro. So it is way too strong for them to be competitive. On the opposite, from a German perspective, the euro is probably too weak. We could live with a stronger euro and still export a lot of goods. So that is the situation. This is pure economics. The peoples from Greece and Germany went along very well for many decades, nothing wrong there. But the euro has changed it all, because now, for whatever reason, even though Germany has financed now the fourth bailout of Greece, we have more than 100 or 200 billion euros at stake in Greece alone. And obviously people in the street, that was your question, they don't like that. Our media doesn't tell it like that, like I just did, but people feel it, they know it, something is wrong here, we will never get that money back. But now, just today, and this is really news, there was a vote in the Bundestag, in the German parliament, on that fourth bailout package for Greece. It was just negotiated, and some 92% of the members of parliament voted in favor of this fourth bailout package, even though after the first one, everybody swore that there never would be a second or a third or even a fourth. Everything will be in order. It's just this one and last one bailout package, and then Greece will be fine again. So it's the fourth. There will be a fifth and a sixth as well. I'm absolutely certain about that. But 92% of the parliamentarians agreed. I would say the people on the street would disagree by about the same percentage. So that's that disconnect. We have no democracy at all. A direct democracy would come to completely different results here. And not because we hate the Greeks. This is a good country, but they have the wrong currency, and they should really leave the euro. But, well, that would have a lot of repercussions. We can talk about that if you want.
Yeah, I think they want to leave the euro. I think they're not being allowed to leave the euro. And speaking of direct democracy or democracy of any type, I couldn't agree with you more. We feel in this country, Peter, that there is really no reflection of a real republic left in this country anymore, because there aren't many people that I know who would label them conservatives who are fans of Jeb Bush for the 2016 presidential run, and yet the mainstream media continues to tell us every single day that Jeb Bush is the front runner for the GOP nomination. He didn't go to CPAC. He has no grassroots support. He comes from a family that has a lot of disdain in this nation from a lot of people at this point. But Jeb Bush, we're being told, is the front runner. I think media around the world does a really great job of fleecing the people, of pulling the cover over the eyes of the people. And more people are waking up as a result of it, because it's so blatant now, right? The propaganda is just so blatant. The anti-gold propaganda is so blatant. Look at what happened before the Swiss gold referendum. All of the anti-gold propaganda came out, and the Swiss people were battered with the gold is bad news in their media day in and day out. So we're really up against sort of a propaganda matrix worldwide, aren't we?
Well, I couldn't agree more. It's not any different here in Europe. Maybe it's even worse. We don't have a choice either, even though we have more than just two parties in the parliament. There's no choice, as you can see from that 92% turnout today in the parliament. There's no opposition, basically, even though we're craving for one. And yes, there is no democracy. The media is controlled. People do not get the full information. They get wrong information. And how should they make up their real minds? I mean, you have to have a free media. We don't have that. And I know it's the same in the US. So yes, this is a worldwide phenomenon. I could add something regarding Greece, if you can cut that in.
Sure. Yeah, please. Yeah, I mean, we're all very concerned about what's going on in Greece. I mean, we're concerned about it from a derivatives standpoint. Well, if the euro collapses standpoint. I mean, yeah, we're all concerned about Greece. Go, please. Yeah, continue.
I hear that question a lot. Will the euro collapse if Greece leaves? I'm tempted to say yes. If somebody, whichever country it would be, left the euro, that would be a signal which would no longer be controllable, not even by the European Central Bank, who basically buys all the Greek bonds these days. But they cannot buy all the Italian and Spanish and French bonds too, which they would probably have to do. The repercussions of Greece leaving would be so unpredictable. I believe it would be the end of the euro. And that's exactly why I do not, maybe contrary to a few other commentators in the internet, do not believe that it's going to happen anytime soon. The political will is still there. And since the rescue money, as we call it, is being printed out of thin air and still can be printed because it's backed by German guarantees, and we still are able to give those guarantees, that money is still available, that guarantees are still available, so we can have a fifth and a sixth Greece rescue package. The political will is there. The politicians are really using big words now. They say saving Greece is for the greater good, for peace in Europe, and don't forget the 2 world wars we've had on European soil in the last century. The question is, for whose greater good is the fourth or fifth rescue? I mean, we all know it's for the bankers' greater good, it's for the system's greater good. If the euro fell just like that, uncontrolled, we went back to national currencies again, that would have implications beyond Europe too. And that's why all the central banks in the world are afraid, some national new currencies might be gold-backed again. That's dangerous. We would have a worldwide, a global problem if we allowed that to happen. And that's why they do still not yet let that happen. It might be a few more years until we really see the end of the Eurozone, but we will see it, that's for certain. That's certain. But they still have the paper money tool to paper it all over, and they will do it to the very end. I believe the euro will break as a whole at one particular day. It's not individual countries that will break out. This will happen within a few hours, but it's still a few years from now.
That's interesting. When you were talking about the Greece rescue package, I just, again, we talk about propaganda, and that in terminology alone is really a term of propaganda, a rescue package. It's the
official terminology. Yeah, it's not
sure. Oh no, I understand, but it's debt. It's debt. It's just more debt. And how could you rescue a family on the bubble that was about to lose their home because they were having a debt problem with yet another J.P. Morgan or Wells Fargo credit card? More debt will not solve anything. It will just bury the people of Greece in further unrepayable debt. And I think that's your point. Even though these rescue packages are backed by German promises, it's just debt. It's more unrepayable debt. I mean, the Ponzi couldn't be more clear when you look at it through that lens.
I've been doing that for 15 or 20 years now, and I was an Austrian economist for that long, when Mises was really completely unknown. This has changed a little bit after the financial crisis, which is still ongoing and has been for 7 years now, I think. But still, it's become easier to explain the things, as you just did. But still, the majority and the mainstream media do not tell it like that. We as the Austrian economists, we are still a minority, and this will have to change. But yes, Ludwig von Mises already 100 years ago said a crisis that came about or was caused by money printing can never be resolved, but by means of a crash, that could be either deflationary or inflationary, or first inflationary, then deflationary, because a monetary reform is a deflationary process, but we will probably see a lot of more inflation before that's going to happen.
Well, I hope that you'll join us again, Peter, to talk about these issues as developments warrant.
Right, thank you for having me, Sean.
Oh, Peter,
and Rory, of course.
Yeah, Peter, thank you so much. Guys, our guest has been Peter Behringer, and his site is goldsiteandblog.com, and his book, Get Our Gold Home, will be published in April. And Peter, thanks so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Rory, thank you for your time as well, sir.
Thank you.
Guys, check out Rory's work at dailycoin.org, and thank you for tuning into sgtreport.com for daily news 24/7. We also have a news site called thephaser.com, and of course, real news 24/7 at thelibertymill.com. And again, Peter's site is goldsiteandblog.com. Thanks, Peter. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Yes, same for me. Goodbye, and Rory, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Have a good day.
Take care, guys.
All right.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.